Okay, so I don't really know what I'm doing right now, which is a huge surprise to absolutely no one, but I feel like I should do at least something. So instead of just doing absolutely nothing and laying in bed while I wait for my tailbone to heal, I am just gonna be doing this because I clearly thought this was a much better use of my time. Let's talk about twinblast. He's held a special place in my heart since I played Paragon back in the day. He's one of the Rangers in Predecessor, and he's one of the main heroes from Paragon. He dual wields pistols, and there's really nothing much else I can talk about. Like, I could go into lore, but Paragon didn't have any, and it looks like Predecessor's following in their footsteps. Anyways, let's get into the meat of this video with his kit, which is something I can actually talk about. His kit is fairly straightforward. It's largely just his Paragon kit, with the only new addition being his passive. Because if you're like me and you're coming to Predecessor from Paragon, then you probably don't need me to remind you that Paragon characters didn't have passive skills. Which isn't to say that passive skills were non-existent in Paragon, but they normally took up the space of one of your active skills. Skills like Chimera's E and Greystone and Wukong's Ultimate, which are notable because they are the few rare passive skills in the game. Anyways, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, that's right, twinblast. Like I was saying, his kit is largely the same as it was in Paragon, the only directly new addition being his Q, and everything else being taken directly from both of his kits in Paragon. Even his passive, which is an amalgamation of two of the skills that he had in Paragon, one from his original kit, the other from his rework. Also, I'll be using the default keybinds on PC to talk about his abilities, in part because the word salad that is primary, secondary, and alternate just seems like an easy way to confuse people on my end, and I already confuse people enough whenever I open my mouth. And I just don't play on controller. I already played on controller enough when I played Paragon growing up. I don't need to go through that bullshit again. His passive gives him 40% attack speed after he uses an ability for the next two auto attacks he uses in 4 seconds. However, since he's a ranger, that time limit of 4 seconds shouldn't be an issue unless there is no longer anything around you for you to hold mouse 1 on. Since you should be holding mouse 1 literally every single time you're in a fight. Granted, that could be said about literally any character or role in the game, since everyone should be doing damage in a fight, but that's whatever. As said previously, his passive is an amalgamation of two abilities he had in Paragon. The first one being Nitro from his original kit in Paragon, which was just an attack speed steroid. And the second one being Rapid Fire, which was an ability that fired off 3 basic attacks super quick, with Nitro being the first part of his passive, and Rapid Fire being the second part. Now, in keeping with him being a gunslinger, his basic attacks are a double shot, which have him fire one gun after another in rapid succession, as compared to Paragon, where each basic was just one shot from one gun, followed by another shot from the other gun. Also, with his basics essentially being a double shot, he applies on-hit effects at half strength for each half of it. So, it should work out to the same on-hit damage per basic as other rangers. At least I hope so, or I'm talking on my ass and I really don't want to be doing that right now. Someone who's better than me at math could put the numbers down in the comments. His right click is a grenade. You fire off a grenade and it deals damage and slows slightly for less than a second. It's the only form of crowd control he has in his kit, and it holds 2 charges max. This is one of the consistencies from both of his kits in Paragon that made it through the Predecessor. However, they work more like the grenades in his rework, with him being able to hold multiple charges and them slowing. There's really nothing else for me to say, except to get into the weeds of the numbers and the scaling on it, but I don't want to do that, and you most likely don't want to hear it, so I won't waste both our time. His Q is a laser. That laser pierces all targets in a line and applies on-hit effects at 65% strength. With the only other thing to note about this ability being that it only goes through enemies, it does not go through terrain. It's a good ability to keep up damage when you're chasing down targets, last hit at range, something you can also do with his grenades, and it's a good poke tool for early game. Another thing this has in common with his grenades is the cooldown time at max rank, 6 seconds. His E is a dash with a passive and active component. The active component being a fucking dash, which functions like pacifier in the sense that the direction is dictated based on the movement key you're holding and not the direction your camera is pointing. With the passive component being that the cooldown is reduced by half a second anytime he deals damage to an enemy hero, with any form of damage from his basic attacks to his abilities to his ultimate. Again, this is another consistency from both his kits and Paragon that made its way to Predecessor. And if you're wondering why I keep comparing his Predecessor kit to his Paragon kits instead of his kits in Vault or Overprime, that's because I never got the chance to play them when they were around. Anyways, back on topic. His E helps him to be one of the more elusive rangers in the game. I would say the most elusive ranger in the game, but as I was writing this, Skylar came out. And well, just fucking look at her. Finally almost done with his kit. His ultimate is Barrage. Is what I would say if this game was based and cool actually, but no, his ult is Ventilate. In case you probably couldn't tell, I prefer his original ultimate in Paragon, which was Barrage, over his reworked ultimate and the ultimate he has in Predecessor, which is Ventilate. Like, Ventilate just doesn't really feel like it does much of anything. Like, yeah, you go pew 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 very fast with arms that turn into miniguns, but there's no real impact to the hits. There's no punch, which I really think is missing from his ult, which is why I preferred Barrage over his pew pew minigun arms, which is Ventilate. God, I wish I could fucking say something more than just Ventilate feels bad. So I will. God, I'm going so off script here, and this is gonna be hells to try and record, but whatever. So Barrage, on top of just, you know, feeling better to me, it also had this weightiness and this punch that I don't really feel when I'm firing off, like, Jesus, how many bullets does Ventilate do? Oh yeah, that's right. Ventilate fires off like 22 bullets at base, and then it scales off your attack speed for how many more bullets you fire. Why? Why the fuck is that a thing? Like, I get it, you probably wanted to make it feel like all that attack speed people build on Twin isn't going to waste, so you have like a portion of it converted into ammunition for his ultimate. But that is still probably the dumbest thing I have seen ever. And keep in mind, Wukong's ultimate, where he would create a clone of himself that attacked everything around him in an area, with, like, granted, with less damage than he would do, was a fucking passive. That was a passive ability, like Greystone's old ultimate. Whereas now, thank fuck, Greystone has to actually time his R button press. Well, so before he dies, he can fucking, you know, get it off instead of it just automatically popping like a fucking GA in League of Legends. Like, you wanna know how many bullets twinblast Ventilate did in fucking Paragon? 20. It fired 20 shots over 2 seconds. Whereas in Predecessor, the number of bullets you fire is 22 at base. Plus, you know, all the bullshit math about fucking 4% of the total attack speed you build in bullets. Like, they could have based that off the power you build, but, you know, fucking whatever, I guess. Anyways, all that aside, you fire 22 bullets at base, plus all the math. And you fire that over 3 seconds, which roughly works out to around 7 bullets a second before all the math and all that bullshit. But overall, this ult just feels worse than its counterpart did in Paragon. Because, like, at least, like, granted, okay, Paragon wasn't a good game. I don't know why I'm putting it on such a high fucking pedestal right now. But regardless, like, okay, Predecessor feels much faster than Paragon did. Like, it feels much faster than Paragon ever did. Like, I will give it that much. But when it comes to the sound design of his ult, like, that shit sounded so much fucking better in Paragon. Like, even fucking Ventilate just sounded so much better in Paragon. And granted, in Predecessor, you do fire more bullets from his ult at max rank. Like, I think the amount of bullets you fire with the build I'm gonna give you in this video is like 32 or something. But still, that's over 3 seconds. Like, I feel like if they want to make his ult a bit more impactful, just like work on the audioscape for it, and shorten the time frame for his ult being active from 3 to 2 seconds. Also, Jesus, how long was that fucking tangent on? Jesus fuck, this is why you have a script, Sarah. Anyways, back on topic with, the actual fucking kit we have in Predecessor. That's his ultimate. I've made my peace with how it is, but it still kinda annoys me for some reason. Regardless, that's his kit. I feel a good skill order would be QE then mouse 2 because more dashes is good, but also you can substitute the E second with the build and go Q mouse 2E as well. As far as builds go, I'll just throw it up on screen because I don't want to waste any more of your time, seeing as how I already wasted how much fucking just ranting about Twin Blast Ultimate and ultimately saying fucking nothing about it. So yeah, that's gonna be the build. For counter, okay, I've gone back and forth on saying, on whether or not I want to do a counter section in this video. But I feel like saying someone is a counter is just another way of saying I have a skill issue in the matchup, so I'm gonna leave it out. Ideally, he's even in all ranger matchups and decent depending on the enemy support. But I feel like like I said, you can feel someone counters him, and if so, feel free to leave it in the comments below. But besides that, I'm done here. Later.